Will Purdue be able to compete this Saturday in South Bend against the Irish? Let's do it.
You are Locked On Boilermakers, your daily podcast on the Purdue Boilermakers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome into another episode of Locked On Boilermakers here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. I am your host. I am Nick Arvin. We're talking a big-time matchup this Saturday as Purdue travels to South Bend to take on the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, who are looking desperately for a win. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the FanDuel app today. Thank you guys for joining us once again today. If you guys are watching this for the first time, or if you guys haven't yet, please do subscribe, like, and comment. It helps us out a ton here as we want to continue to bring you guys daily content. It really is appreciated, and I want to thank all of y'all for joining in. But let's talk about this matchup Saturday, Purdue and Notre Dame. It's going to be a huge one. Purdue, they don't necessarily find the success that they want to find last week. You take on USC, and we circled that game since the beginning of the year. We knew this one was going to be an important game. It's going to be a pivotal matchup for where Purdue's going to go this year. If Purdue is able to upset USC at home, that would turn heads. People would realize that the Purdue Boilermakers are here to stay. And while Purdue wasn't able to get it done against USC, while they weren't able to pull out that victory, I think that Purdue impressed some people. The fact that Purdue was able to compete with the team like USC, the fact that Purdue was in a two-possession game with USC at the end. When you think about that pick six, that really changed the game. That's a 14-point swing. That's the difference there. So Purdue was in that game. Purdue was a lot closer. They showed a lot of fight. If you're watching the games, you would know. If you're watching what Barry Odom's doing, you would know. This Purdue Boilermaker team is competent, and this Purdue football team is much better than they were last year. So for Notre Dame, they were in the national championship last year. This was a team that had expectations, that almost got to that next step, that almost won that national championship. They fall short to Ohio State. And then in the offseason, the big storyline surrounding South Bend is who's going to be the quarterback. Riley Leonard, he graduates, goes on to the NFL. He's a Colt now. And for Notre Dame, you want to find a guy that's going to be able to replicate the production that Riley Leonard gave you last year going into that national championship game. So in the offseason, Notre Dame finds their guy. They say, hey, CJ Carr, we think that you are going to be that guy. And from my perspective, although I think that CJ Carr is going to be an excellent college football player, I think that his brightest days are definitely ahead of him. I think that he has plenty of arm talent. But the issue with CJ Carr is he doesn't give you on his legs what Riley Leonard was able to present for Notre Dame, and that opened up the running game with Jeremiah Love. That opened up a lot more than just on paper what Riley Leonard was able to do on his feet, become an improviser, throw the ball down the field. He was like a real multi-tool quarterback, and that poise that Riley Leonard always had. He was a very experienced guy, so he didn't fall under pressure. He was very composed, and in those big games, in those competitive matchups, in those ranked games, Notre Dame was able to win those last year because they had a guy like Riley Leonard that was so composed in the moment. He was able to make the big play at the right time. And nothing against CJ Carr, but we just haven't seen that so far. He's been solid. He's been fine for Notre Dame so far. Throughout two games, he's had 514 yards, throwing for 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 62% completion percentage. So by no means has CJ Carr been bad per se, but he hasn't been what Riley Leonard has been. He hasn't been the killer that Riley Leonard was. And the wins haven't necessarily been there the way that they were there under Riley Leonard. And that kind of just goes to show how vital Leonard was to this program, but also it shows that Notre Dame, they're looking for some success in this new era of Notre Dame football. And going into this year, the expectation for the Irish was primarily a national championship. They wanted to get back to where they were last year, but this year they wanted to get it done. And Now, starting out 0-2, that gets a lot more complicated because in order to make it into the college football playoff, in all likelihood, Notre Dame is going to have to win out. And for Purdue, that's not great. Facing the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, 0-2, they need a win more than life itself. For Notre Dame, you absolutely cannot lose another game this year, or else this year's a wasted year. For Notre Dame, years that you don't make the college football playoffs are wasted years. Those are the expectations at that program. For Purdue, that's not where Purdue's at. We want to see competitive football. We want to see this team continue to grow, continue to get better. 70 new guys. You want to see them start gelling together and win games this year, but build into the future. Build under Barry Odom. Build for Ryan Brown. Build a foundation that this program is going to play into going into the future. Make this program a team that garners some respect in the Big Ten, that Big Ten opponents fear. That's what I want to see for Purdue. But for Notre Dame, they're in a different kind of time, and that's okay. That's perfectly fine. We know what that program has been historically. But when you think about Purdue going into Notre Dame, especially going into South Bend, that line opens up at 25.5 points. And that's a huge line. I think that Purdue will be able to cover that one. I'll give my official prediction at the end of the show. But I would honestly be more confident. And I wasn't confident at all in Purdue's ability to win a game in South Bend going into this year. But I would be more confident in Purdue's ability to win this one if Notre Dame started out 2-0 compared to them starting out 0-2. Because like I said, this is an absolute must-win game for Notre Dame. If they somehow find a way to lose this game, if Purdue comes in and has an absolute shocker, one of the hugest upsets, then there are some conversations that we're not having right now, whether that be about Marcus Freeman, whether that be about his job security. Purdue has the opportunity to shake up everything in South Bend on Saturday. And while I'm not saying that that's the case, you play the games for a reason. I don't expect Purdue to go in to South Bend and beat Notre Dame. But I think that USC's offense is much better than what Notre Dame's offense looks like. I think that Purdue saw an explosive offense, one of the top offenses in the nation last week against USC. And you can say what you want on fourth down. You don't get stops. 4-4 for USC on fourth down. That's what kills you at the end. But Purdue continued to fight against USC this past week. And I think that's a better offense. It's never the best idea to compare two teams and use that as a measuring stick because the way different teams game plan against Purdue will be different despite the talent on the field. However, I saw a fight last week that Purdue showed against USC that I haven't seen a long time for this program. And I expect that to continue going into this week against Notre Dame. It's going to be a huge hill to climb. Notre Dame is going to be so motivated to win this one on the backs of their running attack. CJ Carr is going to get some plays. But what if you're able to get a turnover this week? Last week, Purdue wasn't able to get a turnover. They're due to break through. CJ Carr doesn't take care of the ball as well as Jaden Maiava does. He's thrown interceptions. Jaden Maiava, he's still yet to throw an interception. I'm not saying that Notre Dame isn't this great team because they are. They have 2 losses, but those are 2 losses against very good opponents. But what I am saying is that Notre Dame isn't a quality of team that this Purdue team specifically hasn't seen before. This isn't some unfought battle that Purdue's going into this one. Yes, it's in South Bend. Yes, it's their first away game of the year. But Purdue faced off against USC. And USC so far has proved that they're just as capable, if not more capable, than what Notre Dame is going to be. So I understand 25.5 point spread. Purdue is a huge underdog in this one. And like I said, I don't expect them to win this one. But I don't think that they're going to get embarrassed the way that some people are saying. Because honestly, I don't think Notre Dame's all that good. I don't think they're your grandfather's Notre Dame team. I don't even think this is the Notre Dame team of last year. While I think Notre Dame will beat the Boilermakers, I think Purdue is going to continue to show that competitive spirit that they showed against USC last week. And I think that at the end of this ball game, we're going to look back and we're going to say There were good moments. There were bad moments. This Notre Dame team, they came out to play, but I'm proud of how my Boilermakers played. I'm proud of how Barry Odom put this team on the field and gave a resilient effort. That's what we want to see, and that's what I expect we're going to see. I'm going to give my official prediction who wins that one by how much at the end of the show. But in this next segment, I want to talk about where Purdue can be better this week. Last week against USC, they showed fight, but they struggled in a couple different facets. One of that is Purdue's quarterback in Ryan Brown. He needs to be better. I think he will be better this week, and we'll talk about it here next. It's almost the weekend. Time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streak, saving more every time you order. These players delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it down. For Purdue, not a whole lot to be excited about against USC, but a guy that was all over the place was Manny Powell. On the defensive side of the ball, coming over from UNLV, he's been everywhere. When the pressure was on, he came through. No hesitation, no delay. And if you've been watching week after week, this performance wasn't a fluke. Powell is on a streak. And just like Manny Powell delivered for Purdue, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays. With DoorDash Streaks, you save every Saturday you order. Stack it up all season, and you could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day. Only with DoorDash. Today's episode is also brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because I can bet however I want. Whether I want to jump in live on the action, I can do that. Same game parlay, futures bet. It doesn't really matter because FanDuel has it all. Their accessibility makes it a real win and should be the absolute choice. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app right now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. So last week against USC, we saw Purdue showed that fight that we've been talking about. They showed that this is a competent football team. This is a team that's going to show resilience. And that's probably the biggest takeaway that I got from USC. Not that they lost the game, not some of the errors that we're going to talk about, but the fact that they played resilient football. However, to win games in the Big Ten, to win conference games against high-quality teams, you have to play good football. You have to play good football from quarter one to quarter four, and you have to win between the margins. For Purdue this year, they don't have the talent to have a large margin of error to be able to turn the ball over, to be able to not run the ball, to not win the time of possession. They can't win games that way because they don't have the explosive offense that a USC is going to have. They don't have a dominant defense like Notre Dame has. That's just not the nature of what this Purdue team is. They're a competent football team. They're a good football team. They're going to win games. They're not going to be the best, but they're not going to be the worst either. However, if they want to win those games, if they want to continue to be competitive, they've got to fix some things. And a lot of that comes down to Ryan Brown, the quarterback, the starter. He's been good this year for Purdue. I can't talk too bad about Ryan Brown, but he did play a key part in setting Purdue back against USC. And while he also made several big plays that kept Purdue in that game, the 3 interceptions within the red zone were the story following up against USC. And going into Notre Dame, you can't throw 3 interceptions and find any success, especially not at South Bend, especially not against an Irish team that absolutely needs a win in a bad way. You can't have those interceptions. So for Ryan Brown, you're the leader of this program. We know that you have grit. We know that you have that mentality. And that's something, when we think about Ryan Brown, has been very impressive for me this year to see this guy's mentality. Because when you think about where he was coming over from North Carolina, there were a lot of question marks. There are a lot of question marks about, hey, is this the guy? He leaves Purdue following Ryan Walters. He goes to North Carolina, can't win the starter job over there, and then comes back. Is this a guy that we trust as Purdue fans to lead this program? And there was some speculation. There were some people that were talking before the year. There are some people that, although I do disagree, we're talking after the USC game saying maybe Singleton deserves a spot. And while Singleton is going to find success at a program, while I think that Singleton is a very talented quarterback in his own rights, I think that the mentality of Ryan Brown, the winning mentality, the no quit mentality, that philosophy that Ryan Brown carries with him alongside just the eye test, you can tell when this guy steps on the field that he's an absolute baller. I think that those factors play in to this guy being the starter going into the future more than him throwing three interceptions in a game against USC in week 3. Because Ryan Brown, he has a huge future. He's going to get those things sorted out. And when you throw him into these high-meaning games, when you throw him into these competitive football games against the USC, against the Notre Dame, he's going to have to work it out. And the only way that that works is with reps. You take more reps, you find more consistency. He's going to start making the high IQ plays. We saw it the first 2 weeks. He was making good throws. He didn't force too much. I'm not overly worried about Ryan Brown, but I do know that those 3 interceptions cost Purdue the game last week. I know that those 3 interceptions aren't going to fly in South Bend. So for Purdue, the improvement that they need to make, playing high IQ football from a Ryan Brown perspective and not turning the ball over. If you want any chance to stay in this game against Notre Dame, you have to win the turnover battle. And we saw that last week against USC. You turn the ball over and you can't stay in that game. That's just the nature of what Purdue football is going to be this year. If you want to win games, you have to play the better football game than your opponent. You can't count on teams to lose games. You have to win them. You have to play flawless football. You can't turn the ball over 3 times. You have to win that turnover battle. That's going to be the only way for Purdue this year. They have to win playing good football. And then we got to figure something out from a running perspective, because I'm still high on Devin Mockobee. I'm still high on this guy. I'm still high on this running back core that Purdue is going to throw out. But last week, we didn't see it. They weren't able to get anything going in the running game. Purdue has to improve from a running back perspective. Not that they aren't talented, but you got to find holes. That goes, a lot of that falls onto the offensive line, but from a scheming perspective, scheme ways up to get these running backs involved, get the run game going early, because that takes more pressure off Ryan Brown. You're talking about those 3 interceptions. He needs to be better, but a lot of the pressure for him to make throws, a lot of the pressure for him to have to throw the ball 40 times in a game comes off the fact that Purdue isn't able to get much going in the running game. And that's something that is going to have to change going into Notre Dame, because I can assure you that the Irish are going to be able to run the ball on you. They have 2 of the best running backs in the nation. Everybody talks about Jeremiah Love, but Jadarian Price, he's been averaging 6.3 yards per carry, 113 yards on just 18 carries so far this year. So Notre Dame has one of the best back tandems in the nation. So they're going to run the ball. For Purdue, what are you going to do? Are you going to run the ball? You have one of the most underrated backs in the nation, and Devin Mockobee, a senior, he's chasing that record. But you have to get him involved. You have to get him those touches. I'm confident in Devin Mockobee's ability to hit cuts, hit holes, and get free. I know who he is. I've seen him play 3 years. But you have to give him the opportunities to do that. And that's not necessarily on a head coach. That's not on a play caller. That's not on the team. It gets worked out in reps. 3 games into this era, you got 70 new guys. It's all going to get figured out, but it comes with reps. You have 2 of the biggest tests you're going to face all year coming in week 3 and week 4. That's always going to be tough, but you got to play who's in front of you. And for Purdue, this week, it's a hungry Notre Dame team. It's going to be a hard win. I don't know if Purdue's going to be able to pull it out. I don't know if Purdue's going to be able to stay competitive. But we got to see some things improve from last week. We got to see that running game get asserted early, and we got to see Purdue start to win this turnover battle. We'll talk about my official predictions for this game going into this next segment. We'll wrap it up, see what Purdue can do, what Notre Dame can do, and I will give my score prediction. What happens Saturday? Can Purdue pull off the upset of all upsets? I don't know. We'll talk about it here next. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. With Mazda, they deliver the confidence with every ride with more IIHS top safety pick awards than anyone else. From footwork to breathwork, athletes sweat all the details. Mazda brings that same intention to how they craft every single model. You can feel the Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to available Napa leather upholstery. If you're looking for a car, Mazda is the way to go. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. Saturday, 2-1 Purdue Boilermakers traveling on to South Bend to take off the 0-2 Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Like we said all day long, the Notre Dame Fighting Irish are going to be hungry to get a victory, pull off their first win on the year against in-state rival, the Purdue Boilermakers. So I'm going to put a prediction out here. I'm going to give a score, but before we put off a score to end the show, I want to talk about how I expect this one to go down. So Purdue, they travel on to South Bend, take on the Irish. This is one's going to be the afternoon slate, I believe, 3:30 ET kickoff. So on NBC, per usual, all the Notre Dame games are. I think what we're going to see from Notre Dame is a little bit of the opposite of what I want Purdue to do, what I've been begging for the Boilermakers to do all season long, and that's to assert the running game, to do that with their star running back, much like Purdue has a star in Devin Mockobee. They got their guys in Jeremiah Love. They got their guys in Jadarian Price, and I expect us to see a heavy dosage of those two guys early. I think that Notre Dame, they're the best when they're running the ball. I've seen CJ Carr. I've seen him make plays, but overall, whenever Notre Dame is able to kind of dictate the momentum of where the game's going, whenever they're able to assert the running back play, whenever they're able to get it going on the ground, they tend to have more success. So we've seen that Purdue, that defensive front, they're getting better. The linebackers are great. Manny Powell, we talk about him all the time. He's been great as a run stopper. But there are some question marks surrounding whether Purdue can stop the run at the highest level. And we saw at times USC was able to exploit that. But for Notre Dame, I expect that they are definitely going to go into this game. I expect that they are definitely going to go into this one and try to exploit that. I expect that they're going to try to get it going with Jeremiah Love early. I think that they're going to give it to him 4 times on that first drive. Try to see if he can break that game open early. But for Purdue, if you're able to withstand an early drive from Notre Dame, if you're able to keep it 0-0, if you're able to get a couple early stops, then kind of the outcome of this game really changes for you. I feel like if you're able to, on the defensive side of the ball, maintain an identity early, stay stern. And we saw that against USC, that opening drive where they hold USC to 3. Obviously, process-oriented thinking, that doesn't play out the way you want. But when you think about the process, opening the drive up, don't allow 7. For Purdue, that's going to be huge going into this one. Opening drive, whether Notre Dame elects to kick off or receive, it doesn't matter. When Notre Dame gets the ball to start, hold them to less than 7. That's what I want to see for Purdue opening this game up, because they're going to try to run it all over you. They're going to try to open up that play action with CJ Carr. They're going to try to get CJ Carr going in the passing game on the backs of Jeremiah Love. You can't let that happen. You got to hold them to less than 7 early. If you can hang around in this game, anything can happen. But we talk about it a lot of times from Purdue's perspective, whenever they were facing off against FCS opponents in Southern Illinois and then Ball State, the MAC team, in week 1. You can't let those teams hang around. And I don't mean to make Purdue sound like a lower level team, but in terms of Notre Dame outmatches Purdue, that's just the honest truth. They are a better football team than Purdue is. That's how it is when Purdue played teams like that. Not saying Purdue's not good, not saying that Purdue sucks, but Notre Dame is a better football team than Purdue. So for Purdue, you have to hang around, make it difficult for Notre Dame. Get an interception, pick off CJ Carr, give Notre Dame trouble. However you can do it. It doesn't matter how. You don't need to have the perfect formula. You go into South Bend and you make it difficult for Notre Dame. That's how you're going to find success in this one. You're not going to be able to exert execute your game plan, rather, the way that you're going to want to draw it up, the way that you drawn it up against the Ball State, against the Southern Illinois. That's not how Notre Dame is going to play. You're going to have to find pieces here and there. You're going to have to trust your tight ends. You're going to have to trust a Michael Jackson for a 7-8 yard gain at the sticks. You're going to have to trust on the back of Devin Mockobee to get you 5-6 yards per carry. That's the things that are going to bring you success in this game. So hang around for Purdue. For Notre Dame, if I'm an Irish fan, I want to see them get on offense and score early. We know what Notre Dame's defense is going to do. They haven't done the best job, I would say, in their first 2 weeks. I mean, against Miami, you give up 27 points. Miami's a good offense. So, I mean, and then against Texas A&M, you give up 40. So the defense doesn't show up against Texas A&M, but those are two really good football teams. Those are two teams where Notre Dame was in those games until the very final moment. So for a Notre Dame fan, I don't want to see a close game. I've seen enough close games the past 2 weeks, and neither of them have gone our way. I've seen that Notre Dame has gotten into these battles. They've tried to go for fireworks against Carson Beck and at Miami. They tried to go for fireworks against Texas A&M, and it hasn't worked out. They haven't been able to compete when it's offense against offense. So from Notre Dame, get your offense going early. Get an early lead. You trust that Notre Dame defense that you pay so much in NIL money to build up, one of the best defenses, so that you can rely on that defense. You have faith that they're going to be able to stop the Purdue Boilermakers. You have faith that defense is going to be able to hold Purdue to less than 20. So score 21. Get out early if you're a Notre Dame fan. This is what you want. You want them to get out early, find success on offense, and let the defense take care of the rest. I don't think that Notre Dame fans have a lot to be worried about, because I do think that Purdue is going to go into this game, and albeit I want to see them show fight, but I think that Notre Dame is going to outmatch Purdue, especially at home in this one. But before I go for the score, the final thing that I do want to hammer on is show fight. Don't get shut out. By all means, don't get shut out. When Notre Dame goes up, if something bad happens, if you turn over the ball, we saw it against USC. Turnovers, they suck. They cost you the game. That's what they are. But bounce back, drive the next possession, score a touchdown, fight back. Show that this is going to be a competitive game. Show that this is going to be a competitive team going into Illinois, going into Minnesota, going into Rutgers. Build for the rest of the season. You don't need to take down the Irish and South Bend. That's not the expectation. Fans aren't going to be upset if you lose this game. But show some fight. Give Purdue fans a reason to tune in the next few weeks. Don't let the excitement of the Barry Odom era go away, because this game is a tough hill to climb, but you have to play who's in front of you. For Purdue, stay competitive. Don't stop fighting. Show that resilient effort that we saw last week against USC. Although it's not there, the process is going to take over. What Barry Odom has prioritized through his tenure is process-oriented thinking. We've talked about it all week long. Eventually, that process is going to hit. You do things the right way. You consistently play as hard as you possibly can. You may be outmatched, but eventually something is going to fall your way. And I expect that it's not far away, and Purdue is eventually going to start winning these big games. I don't think it's going to happen against Notre Dame, but I think it's going to happen soon. With that being said, I think that Notre Dame is going to go into this matchup. I think that they're going to score 31 points. I think Notre Dame's defense, they're going to step up and hold Purdue to 13. So 31-13, Notre Dame. I think that Purdue gets beat by 18 points. They cover that 25.5-point spread. I think that Purdue fans have something to be excited about going into Illinois. I think that Purdue will play competitive in this game, but ultimately Notre Dame in South Bend is going to be a little bit much for Purdue to overcome. Hope I'm wrong. Hope Purdue proves everybody wrong. But you got to play it out on the field. Got to play who's in front of you. So thank you guys once again for joining in to Lock On Boilermakers today. I really appreciate all the support, like we said earlier in the show, subscribers, likes, comments, it all helps us out a ton over here. Tomorrow, we're talking Purdue. Their schedule is dropping. In-conference schedule dropping tomorrow. We'll have all the coverage. That one's going to be exciting. But overall, just thank you guys for listening. It's another huge moment for Locked On. College football fans, Locked On and Fire TV present College Football Kickoff, your ultimate college football weekly preview. Drake Toll of Locked On Big 12, he leads that conversation alongside two-time AP Coach of the Year, Gary Patterson, former college star, Jesse Holley, and Locked On's local experts. A college football preview only Locked On can do. Catch College Football Kickoff every Thursday throughout the season, only on Fire TV. Thank you guys, and as always, boiler up, hammer down.